It's been a while since we've done a follow-up Q&A, and the last video I put out was about these timber and grain ZeroClear RipPlate and DrillPlates. And we might as well just go ahead and cut to the chase, because some of the most common questions and comments were, I don't get it. I mean, I can just put a piece of wood on my drilling table and use that to back up my drill, which was a comment about using this. Now, some people saw this and thought, well, that's brilliant. I happen to agree with those comments, but I also agree with the people who say, I just put a piece of wood underneath as a backup and that works just fine. Let me explain what you get using an insert like this without a block of wood on your table is you get easier access to things like the use of your miter gauge or the miter gauge slots for hold downs, clamps, and the like. I'm not suggesting that you have to have this. I think it's kind of cool, and I'm going to enjoy having it, but I also have lived without one since 1987. And Shopsmith users haven't had one of these in the last 70 years, but I still think it's a nice addition. More comments, though, came about the RipPlate than about the DrillPlate. So let me go to my iPad and let's pull up some of the comments. So yeah, most of the comments have to do with the fact that there isn't an ability to use our upper saw guard. If you happen to have a model 510 or 520, this is the larger tables with the T-slot miter slots, you'll know that your upper saw guard fits into a slot that's in line with the saw slot. And with this design, there's not a way to do that. If Daniel had made this slot continue on into this part, you'd be cutting it in half as soon as you plunge into it. Now, I like the upper saw guard and think that anytime I can use it, it's a good choice, because it has a true riving knife, meaning that the splitter comes into contact with the saw kerf as soon as the blade, as soon as the board exits the blade. This device would be a splitter, and it is always going to be some distance further away from the blade. And there's a possibility that your stock could close up on the back side of the blade where the blade's moving uphill if you don't get to it quickly enough. By the way, Daniel reached out to me and said, is there any reason why you didn't put 2 of those splitters in? Because it's supposed to have 2. Yeah, because I was rushing and didn't read the instructions. Shame on me. But I'm going to be getting on a Zoom call soon with Daniel. We're going to talk about it. And I believe that this thing could be improved a couple ways, but to have this included so that I could use the standard riving knife and upper saw guard would in fact be an improvement. Another comment that a few people had is, because the blade is coming up from the back, their fear is that the magnets might fail if for some reason the blade would catch that. Now, a couple things can happen. Your blade itself might go a little wonky on you if you're not careful. Doesn't happen often, but it can happen. But another thing that could happen is a piece of scrap that you're cutting might come around with the blade and push up on the back. Now, keep in mind, you're using a zero clearance insert. Not sure how much scrap you're going to get down in there. And there are 2, and I'm pushing on this, there are 2 strong rare earth magnets at play there. But that said, it could be possible to add a pin and a hole. So simply inserting this in, plugging it into the back, and then dropping it in place. And that would prevent this from lifting from the back. There are other ways that could be accomplished, but I think that is probably the most straightforward way. You'd have to be careful where you position it, because you do have the slot directly in the center here, so it would have to be off-centered somewhere. First idea was, well, you could add a little tab on the back here, but there's also a lip here, so that makes that a little more complex. But yeah, it could be done, and I think that that's probably something we'll see in a future iteration of this. It's going to be my recommendation to Daniel that he just make a zero clearance insert without this insert, but with a slot for the upper saw guard. That would satisfy those of us who happen to have a model 510. The next comment was, well, I can make my own inserts. And that's right, we can make our own inserts. They're not difficult to make. I've made them in the past. Others on YouTube have made them in the past, and you should be able to make your own inserts. That said, we should be able to make a lot of the things that we buy, but sometimes our time is worth more than our money. And so being able to buy something like this off the shelf that has been well engineered and well manufactured is appealing to some of us. Oh, and here comes the rain. I don't know if you can hear that, but rain on my metal roof. Just to address the elephant in the room, yes, the audio was awful. It turns out it was the raw footage. Sometimes it's the editing process that creates bugs, but this time it was the raw footage that was bad, and there was nothing I could do. I tried, I used several AI tools, and nothing made it any better. So I apologize. Thank you for pushing your way through that video. I hope you at least found some useful content in it. Oh, Frank also purchased that same phenolic insert that I purchased, and also did not have the bolt holes properly aligned. He used the drill press to quickly modify it, and away it went. Yes, that's how you would do it to fix that. Somebody asked, where did I put my chuck key? And I said something about if you know, you know. Well, okay, what I meant was that whenever I tighten my chuck, I tighten it in all 3 points. That makes sure that everything is properly centered and tightened. I got in that habit a long time ago. Jim McCann might have even taught me that. And I remember being told that and thinking, well, that's kind of nonsense. And then not long after, as I started to get into that habit, I got around to the 3rd tightening location, and it tightened quite a bit. It was a surprising amount, which was an indication that my bit wasn't quite centered as I thought it was. But when I commented that, oh, I just used all 3 tightening points, they came back with, no, that's not what I meant. Where did you put it? Oh, where did I put it? Okay. So normally, my chuck keys live on the far end of the machine. There's a hole over there to hold a hex wrench and to hold your chuck key. But I also have a rare earth magnet that I keep up. I think it's rare earth. Yeah, I got a magnet that I keep up on top of the headstock or on the motor pan. This is made of steel. And when I'm using my drill press, I set it there, and that keeps it within hand's reach, but keeps it out of the way from anything that could come into contact. Now, yeah, you can't see, it is not centered between the drive hubs here. It's off to one side. I also use magnets to hold my hex wrench, my Shopsmith toolbox, in place when I have the machine in the drill press position. Actually, I keep it there all the time. It's just handy to have it right there, and I have another one on the far end. You can never have too many of those. Somebody asked if I have a file for the 3D printed insert. I personally don't have that file. I guess I have it, but I haven't shared it. I pointed in my comment to that comment to where I found the file, which I thought it was on Thingiverse, or I thought it was on Printables, but it turns out it was on Maker's World, which is owned by Bamboo. And Bamboo is the company whose 3D printer I'm using now. Over at mygrowthrings.com, I'll point to all of those files, because there are multiple 3D files that you might want to get a hold of if you're going to be printing things for your Shopsmith. I've printed a few more things that are around here that I've not bothered to talk about or show. And now I'm at a loss for what? Yeah, for example, this is a 3D print of a part that is very similar to something that is available online. I believe, does Craig sell this? I think it's Craig. That is an expandable miter bar that can be used on jigs and fixtures and can be inserted into the Shopsmith miter slot. And then it has 2 opposing wedges on it that when you slide this, it causes this bar to expand in the slot. And so you get this adjusted just so, and then you tighten it down on your jig. Kind of cool, and the fact that it was designed to fit our table slot I thought was neat. There's also some T-slot, also some T-nuts that I have printed. Oh, there's the rain. And those T-nuts have worked fine as well. Oh, and another one. I've 3D printed some bandsaw table inserts. These are for the old cast iron table that has the aluminum inserts, and you can see that this is 3D printed, and I printed it with an interesting, I don't know if you can see how prismatic that is, but a plate that allowed it to print nice and smooth and interesting. Again, a free file that you can download, and it replaces a part that we can't get anymore, so why not? Another question about was the insert flush with my table? And I think I mentioned that no, it's not exactly flush. It's sitting ever so slightly high, or as I might have said, proud. And I did mention that on the back of these surfaces right here are mating with little bumps that are cast in the bottom of the table. And this can be sanded down, or if you need to, you can add tape to increase this if it's sitting too low. It is the insert, though, that I adjust, not the table, because if I modified my table to work with one insert, that just creates problems with the next insert. Another question came up, and I meant to mention this. Are these available for the Model 500? And the answer is Daniel is working on versions of this for the Model 500, so they are coming. All right, that's it for this one. Jump over to mygrowthrings.com to continue the conversation. And see you again soon. Make it a great day.